The means of defense against foreign danger have been always the instruments of tyranny at home. The advancement of science and the diffusion of information is the best element to true liberty. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries. There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. Wherever the real power in a government lies, there is the danger of oppression. The truth is that all men having power ought to be mistrusted. It may not be easy, in every possible case, to trace the line of separation between the rights of religion and the civil authority with such distinctness as to avoid collisions and doubts on unessential points. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary, self-appointed, or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power knowledge gives. A popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it is but a prologue to a farce or a tragedy, or perhaps both. It will be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood. Americans have a right and advantage of being armed, unlike the citizens of other countries whose governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. I cannot undertake to lay my finger on that article of the Constitution which granted a right to Congress of expending, on objects of benevolence, the money of their constituents. Charity is no part of the legislative duty of the government. The Constitution preserves the advantage of being armed which Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, where the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. No nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. You must first enable the government to control the governed, and, in the next place, oblige it to control itself. Equal laws protecting equal right, the best guarantee of loyalty and love of country. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. All men having power ought to be distrusted to a certain degree. Where an excess of power prevails, property of no sort is duly respected. No man is safe in his opinions, his person, his faculties or his possessions. Learned institutions ought to be favorite objects with every free people. They throw that light over the public mind which is the best security against crafty and dangerous encroachments on the public liberty. The means of defense against foreign danger historically had become the instruments of tyranny at home. As a man is said to have a right to his property, he may be equally said to have a property in his rights. If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. Liberty may be endangered by the abuses of liberty as well as by the abuses of power. Liberty is to faction what arrows to fire. Let me recommend the best medicine in the world, a long journey, and a mild season through a pleasant country in easy stages. Liberty may be endangered by the abuse of liberty, but also by the abuse of power. Had every Athenian citizen been a Socrates, every Athenian assembly would still have been a mob. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. If we are to be one nation in any respect, it clearly ought to be in respect to other nations. Experience is the oracle of truth, and where its responses are unequivocal, they ought to be conclusive and sacred. Religious bondage shackles and debilitates the mind, and unfits it for every noble enterprise, every expanded prospect. Ought to be so constituted as to protect the minority of the opulent against the majority. No man is allowed to be a judge in his own cause, because his interest would certainly bias his judgment, and, not improbably, corrupt his integrity. Justice is the end of government. It is the end of civil society. It ever has been and ever will be pursued until it be obtained, or until liberty be lost in the pursuit. Experience is the oracle of truth.